Catherine Mary Bush, later known to the world as Kate Bush, was born on July 30, 1958, in Bexley Heath, Kent, England, into a household where creativity quietly breathed in every corner. Her upbringing was far from ordinary. Her father, Robert, worked as a general practitioner, yet found his true escape at the piano, while her mother, Hannah, balanced her nursing career with a deep passion for traditional Irish dancing. Art was not a hobby in the Bush family, it was a way of life. Kate's older brothers only deepened that atmosphere of imagination. One crafted musical instruments by hand, while the other expressed himself through poetry and photography. Growing up surrounded by such artistic energy, it seemed almost inevitable that Kate would follow a similar path. Drawn irresistibly to the piano in her home, she revealed an extraordinary talent at an astonishingly young age. By 11, she had already mastered the organ and the violin and was composing her own songs, pieces filled with rich melodies and emotional depth that felt far beyond the years of a child, hinting early on at the remarkable artist she was destined to become. Interestingly, Kate was also fascinated by sports for a time, particularly karate. She was strongly influenced by her brother, who taught karate at Goldsmiths College, where Kate trained regularly and became known for her piercing key shouts, earning her the nickname E. At the same time, her songwriting abilities were rapidly maturing. By the age of 15, she was already writing with confidence, and her brothers began helping her record her first demo tapes. Within just a single year, Kate managed to write and record nearly 50 songs, works overflowing with metaphor, literary references, mysticism, and dreamlike imagery. Even at this early stage, her highly theatrical and unconventional approach to music was clearly emerging. Her brothers tried to shop the demos to record labels, but without the right industry connections, every attempt led to a dead end. Fortunately, a turning point soon arrived. A friend of Kate's brother, Ricky Hopper, happened to know Pink Floyd guitarist David Gilmour. Through Hopper, Kate's demos found their way into Gilmour's hands. Intrigued by the unique voice and imagination of this young talent, he wanted to hear more and offered to professionally record one of her songs in his own studio, a quiet but decisive moment that would change the course of her life. That was how, in 1973, Kate Bush's first official recording, Passing Through Air, came into existence. Deeply impressed by the result, David Gilmour brought in sound engineers who had previously worked with the Beatles to help the 16-year-old Bush create a refined, professional demo tape. In many ways, it served as her musical calling card, a carefully crafted introduction to the industry. The demo was beautifully presented, almost like a gift, though in truth Gilmour may not have needed to go to such lengths. By the mid-1970s, the British music scene was growing stagnant, and major record labels were eager, almost desperate, for fresh talent capable of breaking through. Once word spread that Gilmour had discovered an extraordinary new artist, labels began lining up with remarkable speed. After considerable discussion, Gilmour firmly insisted that Kate sign with EMI Records. The label not only recognized her rare talent, but also proposed a thoughtful, long-term plan for her artistic development. When Kate signed the contract, she had just turned 18, and EMI's producers understood that rushing her towards success, or failure, could define her entire future. Instead, they chose patience. Kate was given a 2-year advance and encouraged to complete her education while refining her craft. Until the end of 1977, she focused on finishing school, studying dance and mime under renowned choreographer Lindsay Kemp to enhance her theatricality and stage presence, and occasionally performing with the KT Bush Band in London pubs, intimate venues where she tested her material, learned the demands of live performance, and quietly prepared for what lay ahead. When 1978 arrived, Kate Bush didn't simply enter the music industry, she exploded onto the scene. In January, she released her debut single, Wuthering Heights, and it hit like a thunderclap. Inspired by Emily Bronte's novel, the song was a true pop phenomenon. No artist before her had ever chosen something so literary, so darkly romantic, and almost gothic as a debut statement. The track featured an unconventional structure, unexpected melodies, and an entirely new vocal approach. Her voice, high-pitched, intensely emotional, and at times bordering on hysteria, broke free from the limitations of traditional pop performance. It was a bold risk, and it paid off. By March 1978, Wuthering Heights had climbed to number 1 on the UK singles chart, where it remained for 4 consecutive weeks. With that achievement, Kate Bush made history as the first woman in Britain to write and perform her own song that topped the national chart. The success of the single was quickly followed by her equally striking debut album, The Kick Inside. For a 19-year-old artist, it was an astonishingly mature body of work. From the haunting intimacy of the man with the child in his eyes to the philosophical reflections of them heavy people, each track revealed a distinctive and fearless artistic voice. The album's title track stood out for its dramatic intensity and taboo subject matter, while songs like Strange Phenomena hinted at Kate's future explorations of mysticism and the irrational. More than just a debut, The Kick Inside felt like a manifesto, the birth of a new form of pop music in which poetry, theater, and imagination finally claimed their place at the heart of the mainstream. It came as no surprise that critics responded with enthusiasm and the album sold strongly. In the UK, it rose to number 3 on the charts, confirming that Kate Bush was introducing an entirely new vocabulary to pop music, one that blended literary sophistication, theatrical flair, and bold musical experimentation. Yet such a meteoric rise brought its own complications, and success quickly began to cast a long shadow. Eager to capitalize on the momentum, EMI pushed her to deliver a second album as quickly as possible. The result was Lionheart, released in November 1978. Unlike her debut, which had been carefully shaped over 2 years, this record was created under intense pressure, leaving little space for genuine creative exploration. Even so, it performed well commercially, reaching number 6 in the UK and producing standout tracks such as Wow and Symphony in Blue. Despite its success, both critics and Kate herself felt that Lionheart lacked the cohesion and emotional depth of her first album. The next major test came with her ambitious concert series, The Tour of Life, a lavish, highly theatrical production filled with elaborate costumes, intricate choreography, and demanding staging. For such a young artist, the experience proved overwhelming. The physical and emotional toll was so severe that Kate made a firm decision: she would never again undertake a tour of that scale. From that point on, she chose a different path, retreating into the studio, embracing perfectionism, and limiting her live appearances to rare, carefully controlled moments. At the same time, the pressures and missteps of her early career helped her clarify what she truly wanted as an artist. This is why the early 1980s became a pivotal transitional period for Kate Bush, marking the moment when she began to take full command of her creative vision and reshape her career on her own terms. In September 1980, Kate Bush unveiled her third studio album, Never Forever, a release that marked a crucial shift in her career. For the first time, she took an active role in production, working closely with John Kelly and stepping decisively toward artistic independence. Kate no longer wanted her sound to be molded entirely by others. The impact was immediate and historic. The album debuted at number 1 on the UK charts, making her the first female solo artist in Britain to achieve that feat. The striking single, Babushka, cemented her status as an early 1980s pop icon, with its dramatic storytelling and unforgettable central character quickly becoming one of her signature songs. Elsewhere, tracks such as Army Dreamers and Breathing revealed a different side of Kate's songwriting, one unafraid to confront heavy themes like war, environmental destruction, and the looming fear of nuclear catastrophe. It was a clear message to listeners that she had no intention of confining herself to romantic ballads or lightweight pop formulas. Following the success of Never Forever, Kate deliberately pulled back from the spotlight. Media appearances became rare as she retreated into the studio, immersing herself in new recording techniques and emerging technologies. Britain was buzzing with the arrival of the Fairlight CMI digital sampler, and Kate was among the very first artists to truly master it. The instrument opened entirely new creative possibilities, allowing her to build dense, cinematic soundscapes and radically reshape her approach to composition. These experiments culminated in 1982 with The Dreaming, the first album Kate Bush produced entirely on her own. It was a defining moment, complete creative freedom, paired with complete responsibility. The result was the most radical and experimental work of her career, often described by critics as Britain's answer to the avant-garde. The album bristled with sharp rhythms, layered textures, samples, and unconventional vocal performances, while its themes ranged from Australian Aboriginal culture and folklore to crime, power, and social unrest. To mainstream audiences, the title track The Dreaming sounded dense and difficult, and commercially the album struggled, peaking at number 3 before quickly dropping from the charts. Yet, artistically, it was a turning point. The record made one thing unmistakably clear: Kate Bush would not compromise to meet industry expectations. She had chosen the path of fearless innovation, even if that choice meant sacrificing mass popularity. Unsurprisingly, this bold artistic direction created tension with EMI, who began urging Kate Bush to return to the more accessible style of her late 1970s work. After the muted response to The Dreaming, Kate all but vanished from public view. Television appearances became rare, live performances nearly disappeared, and she deliberately stepped away from the mainstream spotlight. What followed was a period of near seclusion, years devoted to reflection, experimentation, and deep immersion in the technical craft of studio production. During this time, Kate reassessed her journey and came to a crucial realization. Her early breakthroughs had not been the result of inspiration alone, but of long preparation, relentless practice, and careful refinement of her ideas. Those quiet years would soon prove invaluable. In September 1985, Kate returned with her fifth album, Hounds of Love, and the impact was immediate and overwhelming. The record was both a commercial and critical triumph, debuting at number 1 in the UK and breaking into the US Top 40, finally establishing her as an international star. Its lead single, Running Up That Hill, A Deal with God, soared to number 3 in Britain and quickly became one of her defining songs. The track paired a striking philosophical concept, the desire for a man and a woman to exchange roles and truly understand one another, with an urgent, dramatic sound driven by synthesizers and drum machines. The album itself was ingeniously structured in two contrasting halves. The first side delivered accessible, radio-friendly tracks such as Running Up That Hill, Cloud Busting, and Hounds of Love. The second half unfolded as a conceptual suite titled The Ninth Wave, a haunting narrative about a woman lost at sea, suspended between consciousness and death. This duality gave the album its singular power. It functioned simultaneously as a hit pop record and as a work of avant-garde art. Kate's visual imagination was just as striking, most notably in the cloud-busting video starring Donald Sutherland, which transformed the song into a miniature cinematic drama and further cemented her reputation as an artist without boundaries. After the triumph of Hounds of Love, Kate Bush remained largely absent from the touring circuit, yet her presence in popular culture was unmistakable. Rather than the stage, she turned her attention to the studio and to visual storytelling. In 1986, she released The Whole Story, a compilation centered on her music videos, which also introduced the new single, Experiment 4. Dark and philosophical, the song explored the idea of sound being developed as a military weapon, and its gothic, film-like video reinforced Kate's reputation as far more than a pop singer. She was increasingly seen as a multimedia artist, someone who thought in terms of concepts, imagery, and complete worlds, not just individual hits. Between 1987 and 1988, Kate seemed to disappear once again. Yet within the industry, there was a sense that this silence was intentional, a period of preparation rather than retreat. That intuition proved correct in October 1989, when she returned with her sixth album, The Sensual World. This time, the sound was noticeably softer, warmer, and more intimate, marking a shift away from the dramatic conceptual weight of her previous work. The title track drew inspiration from Molly Bloom's famous monologue in James Joyce's Ulysses. When permission to use the original text was denied, Kate rewrote it in her own words, preserving its essence while making it unmistakably hers. The result was gentle yet charged with sensuality, revealing a songwriter who had matured both emotionally and artistically. Among the album's highlights was This Woman's Work, originally composed for the film She's Having a Baby. Deeply emotional, the song confronted themes of female sacrifice, vulnerability, and quiet suffering. Over time, it achieved cult status and remains one of Kate Bush's most frequently used tracks in film and television. Other songs, such as Love and Anger and Rocket's Tale, showed her continued willingness to experiment with structure and arrangement. The Sensual World reached number 3 on the UK charts, confirming her relevance even as her music became more personal and less driven by mainstream trends. Once again, following its release, Kate withdrew from public view. By the early 1990s, She was consciously distancing herself from a pop industry racing into a new commercial era. Success, it seemed, was no longer her primary concern. She had already proven everything she needed to prove. What mattered now was the freedom to create. That mindset shaped her seventh album, The Red Shoes, released in November 1993. In contrast to the intimacy of the sensual world, this record felt more open and energetic, blending rock and folk influences. Much of its vibrancy came from collaborations with notable guest musicians, including Eric Clapton, who played guitar on And So Is Love, and Prince, who co-wrote Why Should I Love You. The lead single Rubber Band Girl revealed a surprisingly playful side of Kate, while Moments of Pleasure stood as one of her most personal compositions, a tender tribute to friends and loved ones she had lost. Despite its emotional depth, the album received mixed critical reactions and peaked at number 2 in the UK, with some critics arguing it lacked the revolutionary edge of her earlier work. But by this stage, Kate Bush was no longer chasing approval or acclaim. She openly expressed frustration at the expectation that every release should redefine music itself. The Red Shoes was not about innovation for its own sake, it was about shared feeling, grief, and human connection, qualities no artistic revolution could replace. After this growing disconnect with the industry, Kate once again chose seclusion, but this time, not in preparation for a comeback. Instead, she stepped away to live on her own terms. In the 1990s, she began a relationship with guitarist Danny McIntosh, and in 1998, their son Albert was born. Motherhood and the quiet rhythm of family life brought her a new sense of fulfillment, and for a long time, music faded into the background. 4 years, Kate Bush created nothing at all. She wasn't writing, she wasn't recording. Once one of the brightest lights in British music, she lived quietly in Kent, almost entirely removed from public life, devoting herself to her home and to raising her son. Then, in 2005, she returned without warning with a double album Ariel, a long-awaited comeback that proved time away had not diminished her talent, but deepened it, giving her music new maturity and emotional clarity. The album's 2-part design reflected that renewed vision. The first disc, A Sea of Honey, presented individual songs, including the playful yet ironic King of the Mountain, a meditation on fame and isolation. The second, A Sky of Honey, unfolded as a continuous suite tracing a single day from sunrise to nightfall. Warm, organic, and built around live instruments, Ariel avoided radio formulas entirely. It was a quiet declaration. Kate had returned for art, not for charts. Her years of distance also reshaped how she viewed her past. In 2011, she released Director's Cut, re-recording and refining selected songs from The Sensual World and The Red Shoes, finally shaping them the way she had always envisioned. Later that same year came 50 Words for Snow, a hushed, atmospheric album of just 7 long pieces, steeped in silence and winter imagery. Featuring collaborations with Elton John and Steve Gadd, it was widely praised as another timeless work. Then, in 2014, Kate surprised the world one last time with Before the Dawn, a series of live performances at London's Hammersmith Apollo, her first concerts in 35 years. All 22 shows sold out within minutes. Blending classic songs like Running Up That Hill with full theatrical presentations of The Ninth Wave and A Sky of Honey, the performances felt almost like a final bow. When the lights went down, Kate Bush once again stepped back into private life, where she remains, on her own terms. And yet, even in absence, Kate Bush has never truly faded. The clearest proof came when Running Up That Hill, A Deal with God, was rediscovered by a new generation through the series Stranger Things. Nearly 4 decades after its original release, the song surged back to the top of the charts, reaching number 1 in the UK and once again becoming a global phenomenon. Few artists experience such a revival. Even fewer do so without lifting a finger. From the very beginning, Kate Bush chose a path few dared to take. She refused to bend to industry formulas, shaping her career entirely on her own terms. From the gothic, otherworldly vision of Wuthering Heights to the reflective, philosophical worlds of Ariel and 50 Words for Snow, her work has always lived at the crossroads of poetry, theater, and fearless musical experimentation. Her long disappearances only deepened the mystery surrounding her, while each return, Hounds of Love, the Before the Dawn performances, or the unexpected 21st century resurrection of Running Up That Hill, arrived as a cultural moment in itself. Today, Kate Bush stands as a rare symbol of artistic independence, a reminder that listening to one's inner voice can leave a deeper, more lasting impact than chasing fame ever could.